morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Friday, September 1st, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first card in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is our 7 of Cups in its upright. So there could be some feelings right now of having to go through some choices that need to be made today. We did see one of the things that we've been appreciating during this Mercury retrograde cycle is even though we often see a slowdown as we see these planets in retrograde, we actually saw a lot of communication coming through yesterday for both feminine and masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. There could be some feelings of confusion today as you navigate how to proceed forward from this point. But let's see if we can get more clarification on what we are seeing right now. May I please have the second card in our 5-card spread for today? Second card, I'm not surprised to see this, guys. This card may look familiar. We received it yesterday in the exact same position. This is a very common card to see during Mercury retrograde periods. Situations from the past coming back up to the surface right now, either on a metaphysical level or on a very practical level. These are situations and circumstances that need to effectively be addressed. But one of the things that we did notice that was very important that we identified that was occurring with some of these past situations that are rising back up right now in your consciousness has to do with the fact that you find yourself in a new position. In understanding the environment that you're currently in right now is allowing a level or degree of new perception as it relates to these circumstances and situations from the past. And it is effectively opening the doors right now in terms of how you are going to proceed thus far, given the fact that you're allowing this degree of orientation towards what you are experiencing from the past, but with the present context. Now, center card for today's spread. What is our center card for today? May I please have the next card? We have coming through right now, Knight of Swords energy, and we love to see this card in its upright. Again, this may look a little familiar. We actually received this card yesterday, and you will recall that for the masculine energy yesterday, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to, we received both the Knight of Swords and the King of Swords in its reversal. So some feelings of uncertainty, particularly around the masculine energy right now as it relates to how to proceed going forward. We see this getting cleared up today. A lot of renewed vitality coming through right now for the masculine energy, allowing them a capacity and degree in terms of taking some level of action right now. This could be a lot of that energy yesterday we saw masculine as it relates to moments of uncertainty, having to review circumstances and the situations from the past. But we identified for the masculine energy that there was a lot of anxiety about observing situations and circumstances from the past in which you wish you had made different actions. And that was some of the point of pause that we were identifying that was causing some of the delay in your activity yesterday. Today we see a lot of that being cleared up, a lot of renewed energy for the masculine, as you said about with what you are after today. For feminine energy, what we are really identifying right now is this is a moment for feminine that, again, you are either seeing this activity right now on the side of the masculine. If you're working in partnership, this is going to be allowing for a lot of productivity today as it relates to partnership. There may have been some moment of support that we saw that the feminine needed to provide to masculine yesterday as it relates to clarity, insight, utilizing intuitive skills. Today, we see the fact that masculine energy is effectively taking some of that support that they received from the feminine yesterday and utilizing it to move into a point of activity. For the masculine and feminine energy not in partnership right now, this could feel like a bit more of a challenge, because while we did identify yesterday the fact that masculine energy was getting a clearer understanding around circumstances from the past based on the clarity of the feminine in the present, either around situations and circumstances around past feminine energy that they now identify and are working on building a point of recorrection for in your own experience, This could also be speaking towards the fact that you are now identifying from those communications, from that correspondent, what needs to be aligned, what needs to be adapted, so that you can move forward with a better sense of urgency. Now, one of the difficulties that we are seeing right now around the masculine energy, particularly right now, is while we do see a lot of activity forward right now, there may be feelings of confusion in terms of where you are effectively headed. There's a lot of points that have to be navigated right now with this 7 of Cups, because for the masculine masculine energy specifically, we're seeing that there are a lot of different hurdles that you're effectively moving to right now. There may even be feeling like you have a lot of different moving targets that you're trying to address as it relates to your plans and your goals today. Keeping your focus on your highest priority is going to help you navigate any senses of overwhelm that you're currently experiencing at this time. While for feminine energy, what we're really identifying is feminine is going through the same journey right now in terms of identifying what their highest purpose is, what that priority is at this time. Feminine energy may also be struggling with some feelings of overwhelm at this moment, potentially even triggered by situations and circumstances from the past coming into play. But we are seeing here that feminine energy is feeling some level or degree of immediate interaction or engagement around masculine energy in this capacity. One of the caution points we have to point out right now as it relates to feminine or masculine energy is how this is going to be taken, because sometimes when we see this Knight of Swords energy, feminine can oftentimes interpret this as feeling a little bit too assertive, feeling a little bit too aggressive in terms of the motivation actions of the masculine. So one of the things that could be happening right now for the feminine energy is trying to identify the intentions of the masculine energy, moving towards them with this degree of movement, with this urgency, with this tenacity. Now, continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, fourth card coming through in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our 8 of Swords. Now, one of the things that we need to identify, maybe feeling like a point of frustration today for both masculine and feminine energy, is when we experience this moment of overwhelm, it can sometimes create a feeling of, or a level or degree of emotional incapacity. Having so many options, having so many things that one needs to tackle at once, that it can often feel like it is effectively limiting you right now. For feminine, this is going to feel like a bit of a point of overwhelm today, a bit of a struggle point, because while we see that feminine energy has a lot of directions that they need to move into at this point, they're also feeling a little bit limited and blocked in terms of their own personal point of navigation and focus. Heavy concentration right now for the feminine energy that is experiencing this today to really focus on what you are trying to manifest going forward right now. Focus on that long-term path. Focus on that high purpose, that highest purpose right now, to help steer you through any of these feelings of uncertainty that may arise today. There may also be a lot of feelings of the past coming back in some way, shape, or form. This could be either on a metaphysical level right now, or it could be in a very practical situations and circumstances from the past that need to be addressed in the present. Now, for masculine energy, we are seeing that this is not necessarily so much of a point of feeling limited or blocked, because we're actually seeing right now that the masculine energy is responding to some of this feeling of overwhelm with a lot of call to activity, a lot of motivation. But some of that motivation will need to be focused today, masculine, because the question is more on point in terms of what direction you are effectively moving into today. Because while you may be feeling like you are very busy and that's filled with a lot of activity, there may be some confusion as to what your own purpose is at this moment. So for both masculine and feminine energy, there is a lot of call right now to work on building that level or degree of highest priorities to help navigate some of these blockages that you're equally sharing and feeling to a certain degree. Masculine, this is also a bit of a reminder today to be very cautious about your approach towards things, because while we see that you are moving towards things with a lot of tenacity and a lot of purpose, sometimes this can be taken as a bit of over aggressive energy on the part of a feminine, particularly feminine energy that is currently going through any of these feelings of overwhelm or feeling a little bit overburdened, and in a way trying to navigate how to move forward from this place with a state of easement. This could also have a lot to do with some of the conversations that we saw occurring yesterday. Something about having this point of having this information that is shared or received in terms of what to do with it. Now we see here for the masculine, there's a lot of activity right now in terms of trying to move forward in this direction or this degree. For feminine, there's something here that is feeling like an internal blockage that needs to be addressed. Now, our fifth card today for our 5-card spread, before we start getting clarity on these cards right now, is we see here our 9 of Swords coming through. So this is feeling some level or degree. This is where we see the overwhelm is effectively moving you at this moment. But This is all very important work because this is showing the areas that need to be addressed right now. One of the things that's very important when we see cards like this is to make sure that you are moving right now with a state or a placement of intentionality, not letting any anxieties or doubts or fears drive you forward at this point, because what we're really seeing is there are some anxieties and doubts and fears rising up to the surface to a certain degree. They are feeling to a certain degree overwhelming for both masculine and feminine energy. Now for masculine, we're almost seeing that this is bringing up a point of activity. It's pointing through a point of action. It's creating a call to action for the masculine energy at this point. While for feminine, this is going to feel like a day of really kind of having to hold space for some of this emotional energy that is rising to the surface. And it may feel a certain level or degree somewhat overwhelming. But we see for both masculine and feminine energy right now, the point is really coming into a point of patience, allowing oneself to feel what you are feeling, but also utilizing this as a point of really focusing on what that highest path and what that highest purpose is at this time to help come into a space of deeper easement. Now, let's see if we can get some clarity in terms of the cards that we're seeing today. Clarification between our Seven of Cups in combination with our Four of Swords in its reversal. So, having a moment right now where circumstances and situations from the past are effectively rising to the surface. And some of those feelings could be feeling somewhat overwhelming today. There could be a moment right now that almost creates a point of confusion as it relates to the path or the plan that you have going forward at this time. This is all coming through right now as a moment of heavy retrograde energy. We've got about 6 planets in retrograde right now. So it's not uncommon to see this type of energy as it relates to the retrograde cycle that we find ourselves in. The importance to really focus on today is maintaining that highest purpose, allowing this to be a point of clearing, allowing this to be a point of really working on understanding what your highest path, what your highest purpose is, what your priority is at this time to help navigate any of these feelings of overwhelm that may rise up today. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with Queen of Pentacles, and we love to see this card in its upright. It may look familiar because we received it yesterday in its reversal. We have been seeing the feminine energy working on this point of focus throughout the duration of this Venus in retrograde cycle, which is going to end in just about 2 days. Feminine energy is really working right now to maintain a point of internal stability within the self. And what is so important about this work that we see for the feminine right now is feminine is assessing situations and circumstances from the past that may be creating feelings or experiences of overwhelm right now. Some of this is really coming to the surface right now, but it is all coming to the surface in order to allow that point of clearance, allowing that point of feeling what you are feeling. Because one of the things that we have been seeing, and this is what may have resulted with the High Priestess energy that we recognized yesterday, is feminine energy was disassociating a little bit from their emotional center yesterday to be able to move towards things from a more logic-based approach. Feminine energies kind of come out of that right now, and some things or feelings are coming to the surface. This is some of that emotional blockage that we identified that was rising up yesterday that wasn't necessarily addressed yesterday coming out into existence today. But what we appreciate for the feminine energy working through this cycle right now is there is a focus on what creates a feeling or sensation of stability for yourself at this moment. Now, if you are working right now in union with masculine energy, this is a bit of that dual effort, because while there are some situations and the circumstances from the past that need to be addressed, while there may be some feelings of uncertainty in terms of how to proceed or how to navigate those circumstances or situations, we see that masculine energy is going towards them with a lot of urgency, with a lot of tenacity, to a certain extent helping support the feminine energy by showing them that their conviction is similar to theirs and is aligned in terms of trying to come into a point of easement. While for feminine energy, this is a continuation of some of the support in partnership that we saw that the feminine was providing the masculine yesterday. While yesterday there was a lot of energy coming through in a point of logic-based approach, insight, clarity, we're really seeing here that today the feminine energy is putting that focus on creating a sense of stability to help support the masculine as they navigate these situations and circumstances together. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is going to feel a little bit different. And this is where we have to see that the masculine, I want you to really kind of be careful in terms of how you approach things today, because we are seeing right now that the feminine energy is operating in a space of keeping a lot of care and concentration in terms of what comes through as stable and supportive in their own life right now. We are also seeing that feminine energy is trying to navigate circumstances and experiences from the past in this moment. These could be metaphysically rising up today in terms of challenging memories or circumstances, or this could be happening to deal with situations and circumstances from the past that need to be addressed in a practical manner today. For feminine energy, while there is a point, and we identify that there is this sense of some confusion at this time, and it can kind of raise a moment for feminine feeling a little bit uncertain in terms of how to proceed. We are seeing that feminine energy is utilizing this opportunity to ground themselves, to focus on what provides stability for the feminine internally at this time. And for feminine energy, this is going to be identified in wherever feminine articulates or understands that feeling of stability arises within them at this moment. For masculine that is working with feminine right now, this is some of that dual effort that we are seeing. Masculine is coming in to lend support to a feminine energy that they recognize is working on this concentration, on building a point of stability at this time. While for the masculine energy and the feminine energy that is not in partnership at this moment, this could be some of that challenging space that we are identifying, because this is, again, feminine energy maintaining their focus on what creates stability at this time. This is why the masculine right now needs to be very cautious in terms of how they approach things right now, because the feminine energy is to a certain extent being triggered, and that's creating a level or degree of uncertainty around the feminine right now, particularly around situations and the circumstances from the past rising to the surface again. Masculine energy is also experiencing this right now, but it is leading them to a state or a place of urgency, of tenacity. So this could come forward right now in a supportive way, depending on how the feminine energy recognizes and sees it. But feminine energy could also potentially identify some of this assertion from the masculine right now as potentially feeling too overly aggressive. And this is why the masculine right now, if you're in the masculine energy, you should really kind of work on your own approach at this time, trying to navigate and also come into a place of building stability, because that is what we really see that the feminine requires at this moment. Now, continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Knight of Swords. For masculine and feminine energy, this will feel a bit different, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. Masculine and feminine right now are having some situations and circumstances from the past rising back up to a certain level or degree today. This is either going to be on a practical level or on a metaphysical level. This is creating a sense of masculine right now of a lot of urgency. We are seeing this. The difficulty for the masculine energy right now is we are seeing that there is a level of degree of urgency that is taking place, but potentially some uncertainty as to how to approach this. You will recall in the daily collective reading yesterday that this is very similar to the energy that we saw masculine in yesterday, but you will identify that while yesterday masculine energy was moving more in a passive fashion, actually not necessarily taking action, trying to assess how to move forward, we see today that there's an urgency that's coming into the masculine energy to take some kind of action, to move with some point of direction right now, but there could still be a lot of uncertainty in terms of what that direction is, which is what we need to throw caution to right now, masculine. If you're feeling some of this, make sure that you are grounding your energy before you proceed forward in this way. Make sure that you are focusing on your intentions, your long-term path, your long-term goal, what it is you're truly striving for versus how you are feeling today. Well, for feminine energy, this is similarly a bit of a trigger point today, because we do see with some of this retrograde energy that is in the air, there are a lot of situations from the past rising to the surface right now for feminine. Feminine is utilizing this moment to work on their own sense of stability at this moment, to concentrate on that level and degree of stability. Masculine energy is around the feminine right now, but feminine is identifying that masculine is moving with a lot more assertiveness towards things right now. This is either working in a collaborative way Feminine energy is either recognizing this as a point of support from the masculine right now, hence the energies that are working in union or in partnership. But for the energies that are not necessarily in partnership right now, there's a lot of caution that needs to be played to this, because feminine may be looking at some of this assertiveness or some of this swift movement of the masculine from a point of feeling somewhat triggered of circumstances and situations from the past. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification, 2 cards coming out to clarify right now. We've got here our King of Wands in its reversal in combination with our 4 of Cups in its reversal. How is feminine energy being effectively triggered at this time? What are these past experiences that are effectively rising to the surface right now that are making the feminine energy really focus on what feels stable and supportive at this time? Well, it has to do with masculine energy that in the past may not have been as supportive towards the feminine energy. This is that moment right now that some of the uncertainty that the feminine is currently experiencing right now is trying to make different choices to lead to different results, allowing this to be a point of clarification and orientation, really focusing right now on efforts and energies to allow a degree of choice that feels like it is something different than you have taken before. Feminine energy is working right now on making this choice for themselves at this moment, working very hard to look in terms of what creates stability for the feminine at this time. The reasons and the situations that feminine is moving with a point of trepidation, adopting some of that trepidation that we identified that they recognized in the masculine energy yesterday, is because feminine energy is triggered from past circumstances or situations where they feel that masculine energy has been moving towards them from a state of only assessing their own wants, their own needs, their own desires at this point. Feminine energy is looking at present masculine energy to effectively try to assess if the intentions are pure, if there is alignment in terms of what that long-term path and purpose is, or if this is something that is feeling too familiar to a past experience that did not necessarily lead the feminine energy to where they were desiring to go with masculine right now. This is causing the feminine energy right now to really refocus, to call back their energy, to work on their own stability right now, even if it's feeling somewhat limited, because there are anxieties and doubts and fears that are rising to the surface right now, potentially as it relates to the intentionality of the masculine energy that is around the feminine at this moment. Feminine energy is trying to make different choices to make sure that they're not navigating or allowing situations or circumstances that are going to cause any degree of disruption for them, potentially in the realms of stability at this moment. For masculine and feminine energy that is working together to some degree and capacity right now, that is working in union, this is a bit of that collaborative effort right now, because masculine energy may be feeling the need or the call right now to really focus to feminine to help assert that they are not like past experiences of masculine energy, that there is this alignment that is in play, that there is this higher purpose that you are both working to build right now. But it is requiring a level of degree of making different choices at this time, because again, for the masculine, we identified that masculine energy was also recognizing situations from the past that you may have felt that you wish that you could have done something differently on in the present. This is some of that confusing energy that the masculine is effectively feeling right now, because while the masculine energy is feeling a lot of tenacity, a lot of conviction right now to move forward, there is some confusion in terms of what to articulate, how to articulate, finding that ability to communicate in an effective way right now, to make sure to create this level or degree of security for the feminine right now, is a challenge space for the masculine. And we do see that there is a lot of caution that we have to pay towards masculine energy today, to be very careful and clear in terms of what you are communicating and how you are communicating it, to make sure that your intentions are coming through versus your conviction potentially overriding that or potentially coming through as too aggressive, too potentially hostile, because sometimes this Knight of Swords energy can feel to a certain degree like a bit of hostility for the feminine. And given the cards that we are seeing here, there's a bit of a trigger zone that may effectively be potentially hit today if people aren't cautious or careful with how they approach things, particularly from the masculine perspective. Now, continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Swords in combination with our Eight of Swords energy today. Look at this conflict that we are seeing here, and this is going to feel like a challenge space right now for masculine particularly, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. For masculine energy right now, there is a lot of conviction, a lot of desire to move forward. The problem is you are feeling to a certain degree limited in terms of what you can actually do at this moment. Because what we're really identifying for masculine is there is this moment that is helping you also identify what it is that you consider your highest purpose at this point. You are recognizing right now, masculine, and this is where we're going to see that some of this is going to feel like very frustrating because we see a lot of desire to have things push forward, but you're also feeling limited and blocked to a certain degree in terms of what you can do at this time. And this is creating a bit of a frustration right now that we're really identifying for the masculine energy, with a lot of care and consideration being paid in making sure that you are communicating effectively. You are identifying, masculine is actually at a point right now where they're identifying that when they are in this vibration, this is some of the work that we saw the masculine was working to achieve yesterday. Masculine energy is recognizing that when they are in this vibration, it is very common for their words or their direction to be misunderstood. Masculine energy is working right now to try to make different choices, even as they feel a bit of this internal struggle right now. And it's feeling very frustrating for the masculine because whatever this confusion that's arising right now, it feels like it's creating a bit of a point of anxiety. It's creating doubts and fears. It's creating masculine moving into a space of activation, trying to activate around the situations and circumstances that are creating this feeling, but also feeling somewhat limited in terms of how they can. For feminine right now, this is all about kind of coming back into yourself today. We are seeing that feminine energy is bearing the burden of some of these anxieties, some of these doubts, some of these fears internally at this time. It is feeling like a bit of a limiting experience right now for the feminine because it's creating or arising in the feminine energy a point of confusion. Feminine energy is navigating this space by just concentrating on what creates points of stability for the feminine. That orientation, that concentration on building that level of stability for themselves at this moment. And for feminine energy, this is going to come through and wherever you put that feeling of stability. If it's around finances today, feminine will be focusing a lot on finances. If it's in your career right now, feminine's going to be focusing a lot on career. Wherever, if it's family, feminine's going to be focusing on family today. It's building that fortification for the feminine, even as they are going through some experiences from the past rising to the surface in some of this retrograde cycle right now. For the feminine energy that is going through this is a feeling that feels somewhat incapacitating because what we see here is it's not necessarily just the fact that they're recognizing that masculine energy is around them. Even for the energy right now that is in partnership, this is going to feel like a bit of a challenging space because it's not the fact that the masculine energy doesn't want to assist to a certain degree. There's a limitation in terms of what the feminine energy really feels the masculine can do to help through these scenarios because a lot of this is happening right now on the internal level right now for the feminine. For masculine to this degree, this is a point of potentially even recognizing this in the feminine energy that you're seeing right now and trying to curtail or adjust your approach to help the feminine energy recognize that you are coming through from a level of a degree of assistance right now. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, we love this energy. We love this energy because this is our magician upright, okay? What we appreciate right now is while there is a struggle that is currently happening right now for both masculine and feminine energy, something is being triggered from the past, either in a very practical way, something that needs to be addressed from the past, rising to the surface today, or something on a metaphysical level, the internal weight of something from the past bearing down upon masculine and feminine today. The masculine and feminine energy right now are utilizing new approaches to be able to tackle some of these burdens, some of these difficulties. For the masculine and feminine energy right now that is working in partnership, this is that joint space in terms of seeing where you are finding oneself. Feminine energy trying to come through to a certain degree of showing that level of degree of stability, recognizing that this is a point of stability that they work on within themselves at this time. Masculine is recognizing that the feminine needs some assistance in this area right now to bear some of their internal hurdles that they are currently experiencing right now. Hence that level of degree of support that we see that the masculine is coming through with right now, though needing to be a little soft is what we're really seeing on the approach today to make sure and maintain that you don't effectively trigger the feminine to experience some of those situations from the past coming up to the surface in a way that is not going to let your own desires or your own communication be misunderstood. For masculine and feminine energy right now, this is a point of activation. It is channeling and utilizing these doubts and fears into a productive space. For the feminine right now, we're seeing that the feminine energy is utilizing those doubts and the fears, situations from the past, potentially rising to the surface today, channeling that into a deeper sense of stability at this time for themselves in this moment. Working on this level of degree of stability is helping the feminine energy come into this moment of feeling like they can adjust or change the energy that is currently within and around them at this time. For the masculine energy right now, we are seeing that this is actually going to feel like a little bit more frustrating for the masculine today, because we're seeing here that there's a bit of a blockage right now that is happening internally for the masculine. There's still this point right now of really trying to activate this right now. For the masculine, really trying to utilize what you are feeling to allow some point of adjustment in terms of manifesting what you are trying to create for yourself at this moment. Potentially even with the alignment with the feminine energy that is going through some of these hurdles or experiencing some of these challenges. Now, for masculine energy today, the focus is finding a way to manifest this into a point of positivity, but it is feeling like more of a challenging space right now for the masculine energy, because we see here this internal conflict that is happening in terms of what you are trying to convey, what you are trying to communicate, what you are trying to plan versus your own urgency potentially blocking or creating a blockage for you. This is either something that you have recognized has happened in the past that you are trying to mitigate at this moment, or it is something that you are actively experiencing and trying to come into a point of correction on. Now, but what we appreciate for both masculine and feminine energy right now is there's a lot of desire to take and utilize what you are experiencing and turn it into something that is productive. This is what we love to see during these retrograde cycles. This is what is supposed to happen, even if it is difficult. Now, let's continue to get clarification on what we are seeing here. This, my friends, these two cards, this is the 6 planets in retrograde right now that are creating some feelings of frustration. They are creating some blockages within the self that are being identified and tackled at this time. Self-limiting beliefs, self-limiting traumas, experiences potentially even from the past that are arising to the surface, that are challenging your own feeling of autonomy or your own feeling of being able to move towards what it is that you desire at this point. The point that is blocking both masculine and feminine energy right now and able to navigate and move the way that they would ideally desire to move right now is the trauma, is the doubt, is the fear. May I please have one card to clarify? May I please get one card to clarify right now? Patience. Patience. Patience is key today. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Just repeat that, masculine and feminine today. If you're feeling this level of degree of frustration, I want you to take a really deep breath today. I want everybody to take this really deep breath and remind yourself that this is a momentary feeling. that this will pass. What we want to be very cautious of today for both masculine and feminine energy, because there's a lot of cards here that are showing that there's potential triggers that are being hit today. Masculine, if you're feeling that level of like that tenacity right now, that feeling of really wanting to like go after something in an aggressive way, but not necessarily feeling confident in terms of what you're trying to communicate in terms of that feeling, give yourself a minute. Give yourself a minute. Give yourself a minute to focus on what it is that you're trying to grow, what it is that you're trying to cultivate. Take that energy and channel it into the long-term path going forward right now. Be very cautious today, masculine, in not necessarily doing something that you may effectively regret doing later, because we do see this energy right now of King of Swords in combination with King of Wands in its reversal may lead to you acting first and thinking later. We don't want that masculine energy. We don't want that at all. So allow yourself to feel your feelings today, but this could be a bit of a frustration point for the masculine, because we're seeing that what is arising right now, some of this confusion is feeling very frustrating. It's creating a moment of feeling some trauma or some past connection, past memories, past experiences being triggered right now. For feminine energy, this is going to be a little bit easier today, but it is showing the fact that feminine energy is to a certain extent a bit closed off from masculine today. We are really seeing here that the feminine energy is focusing on what creates stability, what allows a level of degree of stability right now, as feminine energy navigates some of these points of internal confusion coming through, potentially even some past trauma arising that is feeling like it is re-triggering and re-traumatizing the feminine in the present moment. Feminine energy is going through their own blockage right now, but they're doing this more on the internal level today. Feminine energy is utilizing this as a point to ground, to focus on their long-term path, their long-term goal, and they're working to manifest that right now in the present with this focus on stability at the moment. Now, for the masculine energy that is working in partnership with feminine, this is something that you are going to identify that the feminine is doing. It may even be helping you right now feel that level of degree of support around some situations that are creating this sensation of frustration that is around you at this time. For the masculine and the feminine energy that are not in partnership, this is going to feel like a bit of a potentially triggering situation, because feminine is pulling in, they're circling their own emotional wagons right now in terms of what makes them feel secure, what makes them feel stable, potentially even feeling to a certain degree from the perception of the masculine that they've kind of locked themselves up to a certain degree. But we identify the fact that the feminine energy is doing this right now because they're navigating something that is feeling traumatizing or triggering from them. It is not necessarily something that is coming through as a point of activation. Now, the thing that we need to be cautious with for the masculine and the feminine energy that is not in partnership right now is masculine may misinterpret this. Masculine, you may be seeing the feminine doing this right now and misinterpreting why it is occurring. We see here that this is that moment that is almost gearing the masculine, who is simultaneously also experiencing this, into a point of activation today. But this is why I'm stressing to the masculine energy that is feeling this today to be careful about what you are communicating, how you are approaching things, your direction, and making sure that you are really focusing on what it is that you're trying to communicate, what it is that you're trying to grow at this time, because we got this super triggering energy here that is coming through right now of masculine having a lot of conviction today, but maybe not having a lot of foresight in terms of where they are going and what they are actually trying to communicate at this moment. And feminine is also experiencing a moment that potentially is getting triggered from past experiences with masculine energy, where they may have identified that this type of behavior did not lead to a pleasant space for the feminine, further triggering the feminine right now into a point of feeling re-traumatized or re-triggered, or having to deal with some of this situations or circumstances from the past coming to the surface today. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between Oh my goodness, between these cards, which are a doozy, and again, I'm not surprised to see it. I know we've got a lot of planets in retrograde right now. Clarification between our Queen of Pentacles, our Four of Cups in its reversal, in combination with our King of Wands in its reversal. This is a bit of the frustration point that we're seeing right now that is occurring in terms of masculine and feminine energy, because masculine and feminine energy right now are trying to utilize new approaches as it relates to dealing with circumstances or situations wherein they may have experienced something like this before. This is why we are almost potentially even seeing that there's this feeling right now of having to do something that you've done before in the past, but trying to find a different way to navigate it. For the masculine and the feminine that's working in this capacity, it is a bit more of a challenging space, because we're seeing here that masculine and feminine have very different approaches as it relates to how to navigate this space right now. Feminine is putting a lot of care and concentration right now in terms of working on their feeling of stability at this point, building this level of degree of stability for themselves at this time, focusing on what creates that feeling of stability within the feminine. And that could even be feeling a little bit closed off from the masculine today is what we're really seeing, because feminine energy is feeling rather closed off today as they navigate some of these feelings internally at this time. While for masculine energy right now, there is a lot of care and capacity in terms of wanting to take a different approach, but again, still experiencing some uncertainty as to what that approach is. There's a point that we identified for the masculine in understanding and recognizing what you need to adjust in terms of past experiences, in terms of how they may be interpreted from the feminine right now. The problem with the masculine is we're actually seeing that while the masculine is feeling a lot of conviction to do something right now, they're not exactly sure. You're not exactly sure what that is or how to do it. You're kind of learning as you go here, which is why the masculine energy may be feeling a little bit blocked right now, or feeling a lot of frustration today as it relates to laying out plans, as it relates to communicating. These are some of those hurdles, and why the masculine energy has to be very cautious today in terms of what they're feeling and what they're experiencing and what they're communicating, because these two cards together is a very hairy space for masculine, because this is a lot of act first, think later kind of energy that we are seeing right now. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. Balance is key. Balance is key. Feminine energy is focusing right now on what maintains and sustains a point of balance. Feminine is keeping on a lot of level right now in terms of what feels fair. Feminine energy, you will recall a lot of the work that we identified that the feminine energy was doing yesterday was understanding the internal journey of the Venus in retrograde cycle that we have been seeing for feminine right now, is identifying for the feminine spaces and places where they may have overgiven in the past, recognizing that overgiving does not solve the point of reciprocity. Feminine energy had that point of clarity within the self yesterday that we identified, of recognizing that the way to correct for an imbalanced situation is not necessarily to overgive to it. In fact, that to a certain degree just exacerbates and allows for something to continue in a point of feeling unbalanced or unequal. Feminine energy right now is putting a lot of care and consideration today into what feels fair, into what feels balanced, into what creates a feeling of fairness and balance for their energy right now. And that's even allowing to a certain degree that we saw feminine was pulling back their energy from circumstances or situations that they recognize that they may want to give forth to, but that they don't necessarily believe there or see that there is this equal give and take occurring on. This is a lot of that healing that we saw the feminine was going through yesterday in terms of working through these retrograde cycles to build a point of closure. How was the feminine energy building a point of closure yesterday? We saw the fact that the feminine energy was building a point of closure, either seeing that reciprocity in the present, seeing that equal give and take coming to the forefront in past experiences, the same card that we saw yesterday, or it was feminine energy pulling back their energy away from circumstances or situations that they don't feel were fair and balanced. This is actually potentially even triggering the feminine today as they do this. This could be a lot of the activation of what we saw yesterday coming to the forefront of the feminine today, because while they may be making these choices right now, it's not necessarily an easy choice, because what feminine is effectively being forced to do is preventing themselves from giving forth to things that they may be feeling a desire or need to give forth to at this time. Because what feminine is now asking themselves is not whether they feel that capacity or degree to give forth, but they're instead asking, to what end? Is there a unified purpose? Where are you putting the energy? This is where feminine energy is feeling some of this challenge point today, but that's why feminine energy is really channeling it all into that point of stability going forward. Now, for masculine that is working right now with feminine energy, this could be a lot of the unpacking of some of the circumstances and situations from yesterday coming into play today. Masculine energy is trying to come to the support of a feminine that they are seeing is experiencing some of these emotional triggers, some of these emotional traumas in the present moment. Masculine energy is effectively even feeling some of these triggers and traumas occurring within the self right now, because what we're really seeing is the masculine wants to have some point of activation here. They want to be able to do something to lend assistance to the feminine in this way, but they're not necessarily sure what to do. And more than anything, you're also being very cautious right now to make sure that you don't do the wrong thing, because there was a lot of articulation yesterday on what that wrong thing looked like that you are now trying to potentially ease out of for the energy that is in partnership. Now, for the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is also a point that can feel very difficult, because the masculine energy right now is also looking at and identifying what feels like it is balanced, what creates that sense of balance. There could be a point right now of conflict between what the masculine is interpreting as feeling balanced versus what the feminine is feeling is balanced on right now, because we're seeing here that masculine is feeling a lot of conviction at this moment, but not necessarily as open as it relates to communication. Guys, we've been seeing that over this entire retrograde cycle, right? We've been identifying that this has been a bit of a hurdle for the masculine energy to come into. There was even a moment that we identified over the last few weeks where the masculine energy recognized that they needed to give forth in a way that is very challenging and makes the masculine energy feel like they're in a point of vulnerability at this time. For the masculine and the feminine energy that is working on this right now, the focal point, the point of coming into balance is finding balance. Feminine energy is identifying the situations and circumstances that create a sense of balance for them, that feel that they are fair, hence building upon this level or degree of stability. And it's feeling like a bit of a different approach for feminine to do this. For masculine, this is the internal work that you're doing today, because the balance that we are seeing here is not the external balance. It's not looking outside the self to find the situations and circumstances that create a sense of balance. This is a moment of trying to find that point of balance within you, within yourself right now, versus what you are trying to navigate towards right now, but also trying to make sure that you're doing it with the right intentions or keeping your own plan in place rather than reacting from a place of trigger or reactivity. This is the masculine trying to get that level or degree of balance within the self so that they can move forward with the proper intentionality in terms of the long-term path and the long-term goal going forward. So a lot of work. I like this because we're seeing that this is all, again, this positive retrograde energy moving into a state of deeper alignment, even through a point that can feel very traumatizing or triggering. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Wands in its reversal, in combination with our Four of Cups in its reversal, in combination with our Magician. So what are we really seeing right now? For the masculine energy, this is going to feel like a little bit more of a struggle today, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what you feel most aligned to. Masculine energy You are going through a moment right now where you are trying to make a different choice for yourself. You are trying to do something in a way that you haven't done it before. It is hard because we're seeing here that there is a blockage in terms of how to do it. That's coming through right now with this King of Wands and its reversal energy. This is feeling like a point of frustration right now. But we see here that you're really utilizing this moment to potentially try to pause, to ask yourself how to manifest what you're trying to manifest for yourself at this time. It's taking a little bit of creativity is what we're really seeing right now for the masculine energy. It is almost forcing you to be creative in a certain way right now, because what we're really identifying is you're trying to navigate a blockage with a different approach that is requiring you to get kind of creative in terms of how to solve that situation. For the feminine, thank you for the gift. For the feminine energy right now, this is a moment of going more internal. This is some of that pulling back of the energy that we're recognizing in the feminine right now. Feminine energy is utilizing this moment of feeling somewhat triggered because they're looking towards the masculine energy and they're feeling anxiety around the intentionality of the masculine. There is trepidation here. For feminine energy, there could even be something that is triggered that feels very similar to situations and circumstances from the past that is triggering the feminine right now. Feminine energy is trying to take new approaches. Feminine energy is also trying to be creative in terms of how to move through some of these blockages right now. Feminine energy's creativity on this is actually channeling them into grounding, into working on their stability, working on their own sense of what is grounding and what feels fair and balanced. Masculine, this is going to be trying to find that point of balance within you, because this is more of an internal hurdle today in terms of what you are feeling, your desire to push forward on something versus making sure that you're not necessarily messing something up in terms of moving forward too quickly on something that could have you misunderstood or miscommunicate what your intentions are at this time. May I please have one card to clarify? Transverse. Six of Cups in its transverse. There's some karmic weight that is being worked through right now. These are karmic connections that are in a space of healing. There's something here about karmic connections that are kind of going wibbly wobbly right now. There's something here about looking at these karmic connections and saying, are these karmic connections that can come through in a space of healing, or are these unhealed karmic connections that cannot be healed? Masculine and feminine is putting a lot of care and orientation towards the energy that is around them at this time. And one of the points that the masculine and feminine energy are navigating right now is looking at the energy around them right now and trying to understand if there is a joint movement right now towards the long-term path, towards the long-term purpose in terms of what you are trying to identify is your long-term goal going forward, versus at the same time trying to heal some karmic connections that feel like they are in a point of blockage right now. This could be some of those points or situations from the past coming to the surface today that you're still feeling a lot of this karmic connection to. Now, for the masculine and the feminine energy that is working in partnership right now, this could be working on healing something either within your direct connection right now, or, I gotta stress this could be having to address some situations or circumstances outside or beyond yourselves right now as it relates to outside karmic connections, be it friends, family, that are in this point of uncertainty that need to come into a space of healing. There could even be feeling right now for the masculine and feminine energy that is working in partnership right now, having to try to take new approaches right now to be able to come into a state of better healing in the relationship. But this is going to be a bit more of a challenge right now for the masculine, because we're seeing here that the masculine energy is being triggered in a way that is making you very reactive today. But trying to pause in your own reactivity, identifying that often when you are reactive to that capacity, it doesn't necessarily get the job done. It doesn't necessarily heal the connections. It just kind of puts them in a state of difficulty or puts them in a point of blockage. So there's a lot of work that the masculine is doing right now to work on their own ability to work on what they're trying to manifest, to really focus on what they are trying to manifest. But that's feeling like a bit of a hurdle today because there's some points of confusion right now in terms of what they are trying to communicate and what they can effectively do at this time. For feminine, you're effectively feeling this as well. But the problem for the feminine feminine right now, as feminine is doing this looking outside the self. Feminine energy is feeling somewhat triggered right now with masculine energy. They are looking right now towards a masculine in terms of their plan, their course of action, their thoughts, their intentions right now. Feminine energy is being very careful and building on a lot of what makes them feel stable at this moment. Feminine energy is also working on taking new approaches. If masculine and feminine energy are in partnership and union at this time, this is a lot of the continuation of the work that we saw yesterday coming into play today. Feminine energy is trying to lend some point of guidance towards masculine on what may be feeling like it was misinterpreted, what may be feeling like it was miscommunicated, to help ease or heal some of these blockages at this time. Feminine energy is effectively even potentially being triggered from past circumstances and situations today, which is why feminine energy is working at a state of work, building on their stability as the point of activation, potentially even helping masculine feel more stable as they are navigating this territory together. For the masculine and the feminine energy that is not in partnership right now, this is trying to heal the partnership. This is that work that we saw yesterday about looking at the partnerships around you right now, those karmic connections, and really identifying and asking yourself, are these coming from a place of productivity? Are they coming from a place of productivity? Or are they just creating more hurdles? Are they just creating more blockages? Are they just creating more barriers? There's a point of identification right now that is coming through about whether these are healed or unhealed karmic connections. For the feminine, it's creating a moment of trepidation around the masculine right now. This is even something being triggered from the past that feels very much alike to what you're experiencing now. This is potentially even orienting or speaking to masculine energy that you have this past connection to today in terms of what needs to be adjusted so that you feel more safe and comfortable going forward right now. While for masculine, this is trying to make sure that you are understood. This is trying to make sure that what you are trying to create for yourself in this moment is understood, and recognizing that you need to be able to articulate that right now towards your partnership energy to help them come out of any state of uncertainty that they themselves are feeling. The problem for the masculine right now is that you yourself are also going through a moment of doubt or uncertainty right now. There's some confusion coming into play. There's something here that you are also recognizing you are feeling somewhat limited on in this capacity or degree right now. There's something here that you haven't necessarily worked out, but you certainly want to take action on. But all of it is to try to heal some of this uncertain karmic energy right now. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between. We love to see these two cards in combination right now as it relates to this retrograde period, because what we're really identifying right now is this is clarification between the call or the need for time. Patience is required. Patience is important. Patience is valuable. The point of orientation, the point of activation right now to help bring things back into focus today is focusing on the long-term manifestation goals. What you're trying to create for yourself at this time, what that looks like, and utilizing that as the point of activation in terms of how you proceed thus far. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Two of Cups in its reversal. There's something here that needs to come into alignment is what we're really seeing. Masculine and feminine are feeling very oppositional today as it relates to the partnership energy. There are situations here that need to come into bear in terms of recognizing what needs to heal. Masculine and feminine right now are feeling some points of uncertainty in terms of looking at the other and feeling anxiety as to whether they are aligned on the same path at this moment. For the masculine and feminine energy that is in partnership right now, this is even work that you're feeling in partnership at this moment. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge today because you have to navigate this space. But if you're feeling any of this, the focus, the solution to this problem right now that you're experiencing is to focus not on the pain, not on the frustration, not on the anxiety, but to really focus on what it is that you're trying to grow forward at this time, what it is that you're trying to build. That is going to be the point of clarity right now to really help navigate whether the partnerships are in a space or place of productivity, or if there is something here that is unresolved, if there is a deviation point, because we see here that there's a point of activation for both feminine and masculine trying to utilize this to move in the directionality that they're hoping to move into at this time. But there needs to be some clarifying of goals. There needs to be some clarifying of purpose. Even for the energy that is in partnership right now, this is going to be the name of the game for today. Having to make sure that you guys are on the same page. Now, continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between our Justice in its upright and our Six of Cups in its transverse. How are we navigating the spaces right now where there's some unhealed karmic energy that's creating a blockage? The answer is very simple. What feels fair? There's going to be a lot of Libra energy today. There's going to be a lot of conversations in terms of what feels fair and what feels unfair today, especially as it relates to equal partnership. This is going to be coming through right now as a point of alignment. The important trigger point I want to point out for both feminine and masculine energy right now is to make sure that what feels fair is being viewed in the optics of the long-term path and the long-term goals moving forward from this time, particularly for masculine energy that is feeling a bit more assertive right now in trying to communicate their feelings on something rather than what you are thinking at this moment. For masculine and feminine, there is looking at these situations and asking oneself what feels fair, what feels balanced, to allow that degree or capacity of balance to continue forward, to see if that can be brought into play here, or if these are coming through in a space where they simply don't feel like they can be balanced. May I please have one card to clarify? We love this. We love this. This is very good. We love to see this card right now, potentially and especially because we've got our King of Wands in its reversal. This is a lot of that continuation of the feminine energy being in the High Priestess energy yesterday, coming to the forefront today. This is feminine energy navigating, utilizing their voice, utilizing their power to make changes right now, to articulate what it is that they themselves desire. Masculine energy is going to be looking a lot towards feminine right now to really try to identify what it is that the feminine energy wants in the long term. Masculine energy right now may even be feeling a point of doubt or uncertainty in terms of what you desire at this time. This could even be feeling for a lot of the masculine energy like, I don't know what I want right now. What do you want? To be able to make sure that there is this point of clarity as it relates to the path that's going forward right now, because there's a lot of attention right now to masculine moving towards feminine energy that they identify as in a point of stability, but also in a point of activation. The feminine energy is not only concentrating on how to be stable right now, but they're concentrating on what they can do to build that point of stability for themselves going on right now. For the feminine energy, this is more of that articulation that we saw coming into play yesterday, coming back into play today. Feminine energy is effectively in a space where masculine is rushing forward a little bit ahead right now without clear direction. And that's something that needs to be potentially amended or corrected right now today. For feminine, there's a lot more of grounding energy right now, and that grounding is bringing feminine into a space where they can articulate their needs, where they can articulate their desires. Feminine energy is even expressing a level or degree of patience right now, potentially even articulating their own limitations, their own blockages at this moment towards the masculine. A lot of what we saw yesterday. For masculine, this is looking to the feminine right now for these points of clarity. This is a lot of conversations potentially happening right now around activated feminine energy that is able to articulate and verbalize around these situations and circumstances right now. We like this because this is where we're seeing some of this balance that is coming through right now. Masculine is identifying the fact that there are challenges right now around feminine energy, but they're really seeing the fact that the articulate feminine energy is going to help be able to navigate those. For the masculine and feminine that's working in partnership right now, this is that masculine energy getting support right now from feminine around situations or circumstances that are hard for them to navigate, potentially even as it relates to unhealed karmic energy that is around them both at this time. For this could even be masculine energy asking the feminine energy to speak on their behalf, things of this nature today. There could be a lot of this energy coming to the forefront. For the masculine and feminine energy that is not in partnership today, this is going to feel a little bit different. Because while we see the fact that masculine has this potential hesitancy right now of rushing forward, but not necessarily having that point of trigger of potentially saying the wrong thing, or not necessarily having that point of like allowing your intentionality to come into play, being very careful in this degree. You are recognizing that the feminine energy is in this modality already. Feminine energy is not necessarily not thinking before they speak. Feminine energy is working on building a point of being grounded prior to speaking. And this is why the feminine energy may be coming through right now at a point of feeling some point of misalignment right now. This has a lot to do with that masculine energy pointing out not to allow yourself to be misunderstood in terms of where you see the feminine right now being more closed off. Because what the feminine is actually doing right now is feminine is building a point of feeling, a point of grounding and foundation so that they can articulate what it is that they want to articulate upon. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Six of Cups in its transverse and our Two of Cups in its reversal. This is some of that retrograde energy really coming to the forefront right now, because this has to do with today being a day that needs to address unhealed karmic energy. And that is looking at partnerships that are either in a point of breakage, either no communication, or there's some kind of fracturing here, or having to address even in the relationships that are in partnership right now, trying to come in to heal some issues or circumstances that you may not feel that you guys are on the same page about today. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Cups in its reversal. Where is the blockage coming from? There is a blockage right now that we're seeing that masculine and feminine are putting into play as it relates to feeling like they're putting their cards fully on the table. As it relates to being completely forthright right now. There's something here that we're seeing for the masculine and the feminine energy right now that is feeling, and this is where some of that point of balance is. There could be a moment right now where there is some level or degree of someone feeling like they're giving forth in a way that they're not seeing reciprocated right now. That someone is potentially feeling around these circumstances and situations that they're trying to put everything out on the table. Someone else isn't necessarily doing that. This is that point of articulation and navigation to try to build this point of clarity, potentially even identifying a lot of the blockages in this capacity to really recognize, to feel like there is this clarity, there is this moment of being completely forthright that needs to be observed and needs to be articulated upon. It is creating a moment or a sensation of frustration at this time for both masculine and feminine energy. This is some of that hesitancy. This is some of that hesitancy that we recognize that the feminine is going through right now as it relates to pulling back from the masculine right now. Because feminine is potentially feeling to a certain degree like they don't feel like they have the full optics around circumstances or situations, or feeling like the masculine energy isn't being absolutely forthright to them. Masculine, unfortunately, is feeling the same exact way to feminine right now. We're seeing here that there is something that is coming into play about having to have this level or degree of forthrightness in terms of what you want ideally desire going forward and what that looks like. Potentially even a lot of work right now to assess and maintain and make sure there is a clarity in terms of your purpose and your long-term path and your long-term goals. Again, that patience being put into play even as there is a trigger that is hit right now, especially around the unhealed karmic connections and partnership. Doesn't necessarily even need to be romantic. This could be related to friendships, family, anything that you feel is in a space or place that requires this level or degree of healing. Final cards for today's spread for today between our Queen of Wands in combination with our Nine of Cups energy. Feminine energy has been very articulate for the last 2 days is what we're really seeing. We saw it yesterday with feminine energy being a little bit more disassociated yesterday from their own emotionality. It wasn't the fact, we will point out, it wasn't the fact that feminine wasn't in a point of emotional overwhelm yesterday. Feminine energy was trying to disassociate from their emotionality around things, handling things in a logic-based approach. Feminine energy right now has coming into alignment with their feelings. They're articulating upon them and they're concentrating on what feels supportive and stable for them at this time. But there's also something about identifying the limitations at this moment. looking around them right now, really asking what feels like it is coming forth in an open, forthright way versus any spaces or places that they feel they're not seeing the same level or degree of openness or forthrightness at this time. While for masculine, this is also a moment that you are potentially feeling somewhat, this is some of this energy that we saw over the last few days coming forward in the present as it relates to the masculine, because again, there's something here with feminine wanting the masculine to come forward, open, be as open and expressive as possible. This is a challenge point for the masculine energy, because this was what we saw was creating a feeling of vulnerability for the masculine to be able to do this, to be able to open up in this way. This is what creates that challenging space. Masculine energy is seeing the feminine energy potentially articulating upon that today, which is going to be potentially a trigger area because there's something about fairness coming into play. So there could be some very difficult conversations that are had today as it relates to fairness and forthrightness and putting all of your cards on the table. For the masculine and feminine energy that is working in collaboration right now, feminine is really potentially guiding this conversation right now. Masculine is potentially getting a bit reactive around it. Again, be very cautious today, masculine, in terms of what is communicated to you and the intentionality behind it versus how you effectively react to it. For feminine, this is a lot more about grounding and trying to speak from a place of grounding as opposed to reacting. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with we love to see this card to close this reading. We love to see this card to close this reading because what is all this work for? What is all this confusion? What is all this trauma coming to the surface for now? What are all these emotions that you're feeling right now? What are all these feelings the masculine is getting that push-pull within them? What are all these feelings that are triggering feminine right now to go into a place of grounding and articulation and activation? It is coming into better alignment. It is coming into better alignment. It is navigating and making sure that there is a clarity. There is an alignment. There is a focus in terms of what that path looks forward towards, where you're going, what that looks like, how to get there. How to get there. Not getting yourself. The message for today is don't let yourself get caught rehashing the trauma. Don't let yourself get caught rehashing the trigger. You can articulate upon it. You can articulate upon it today, but don't let yourself get caught in it. Look for the point of productivity. Look for the spaces and places of long-term growth. Allow yourself to utilize these challenges that are coming in today to help navigate a point of easement as you go forward. As opposed to letting yourself get trapped in the self-limiting beliefs, the anxieties, and the fears that today is potentially going to bring up within you. Now, bottom of the deck on this reading today is decisions need to be made. Decisions need to be made. Choices need to be made here. These are challenging spaces. There are difficult decisions that need to be made in this moment. And some of this is about what those decisions are and what they're going to lead into to come into a state of deeper easement. It's a challenging moment right now for both masculine and feminine energy because these choices that need to be made, they are choices that need to be made for the whole unifying factor of what you're aligning to at this time. But we are seeing here, especially with this judgment card in its reversal, that there is this conversation right now on what those decisions need to be to allow for a point of deeper easement. Could even be a lot of conversations in terms of what that looks like or how that plays out. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it with me. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video with the option of a recording sent to you afterwards. And if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind that when you book a private reading, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you would like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never inbox you. I will never DM you. I will never slide into your PMs and tell you that I have some kind of personal message just for you. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow. Guys, that was